Hi everyone. This video is a continuation of the introduction to Microsoft Excel. In the first video, we spoke about the basics on the use of Microsoft Excel. That included entering data, entering formulas, as well as how one can navigate through the Excel spreadsheet. In this video, we expand on that by talking about formulas and functions that one can use in Excel when doing calculations. Consider this data set that is on your screen on the Excel spreadsheet, where in column A we've got odd numbers or even numbers from 2 to 100, and in column B we've got odd numbers from 1 to 99. This data set we will use to illustrate on how one can use the different functions in Excel. The first thing that I would want us to consider is an idea that I introduced in the first video of cell referencing. I will focus on the two reference types that are used often in this course, and that is relative references as well as absolute references. I have in a way introduced relative references. Say now you want to multiply each odd number by the even numbers on column A. So what you would do first, like I said, you need to type in an equal sign, and you do not need to type in or rather enter a 2 then multiply by 1, because then that means you would have to do it for every element or every entry in the column A and B. So what you would do, you would click the cell that contains the number on which you want to do an operation. For example, you want to multiply a 2 which is in A2, so you click on A2, multiply by the 1 which is in B2, you click on B2, then you press enter on your keyboard. What then you would do, you don't have to do it over and over again. You would select this and you would drag, and Excel would do it for the rest of the numbers. What happens here is you just type the formula in the one cell, and as you drag, Excel doesn't stay on the cells that you had typed the formula. It moves down. For example, here it goes down to cell A3 and B3, and then here A4 and B4. So what happens is this reference that you used is relative to where you are. So as you drag down, Excel moves down as well with the cells. That is relative referencing. It is not always the case that you want this to happen. Say you had a 20 and you want to multiply each even number by the 20. The first thing you would do, of course, is type in an equal sign, and then yes, you will select the 2 multiplied by the 20. You don't need to type in the 20. You would select the 20, which is in G2. And as you press enter, it multiplies. Now let us drag and see what happens. As we drag down, the expectation is that the same thing is going to happen. However, that's not the case. What happens is that we've got zeros. And why is that the case? Let's go to the formula bar. The 40 we got by multiplying A2 by G2. And then as we move down, you see it now says A3 by G3, which means because the reference is relative, Excel still moves down even from this. So what you would do to lock the cell and tell Excel not to move down, you would do what we call an absolute reference. Let's just delete all these numbers. So what you would do, you would type in an equal sign, and you would select this one, but this one you just want a relative reference because you still want it to move down the column, but then you multiply. But this one you don't want it to move down, you want it to stay at 20. So as you click on this one, you then on your keyboard press F4. What then happens is that you will have these dollar signs. This dollar sign if you want to think about it, they lock the cell and tell Excel that let's just do, let's just keep this 20 for every absolute or every relative reference that we've given, that is 40. And then as you drag down, the 20 remains because you have reference. You see, where we haven't done an absolute reference, it continues and moves down, but where we have, it still remains as G2, G2, G2 all the way down. So that's the idea of cell reference, and it will come in handy as you go along with your practicals. The next thing that I want you to talk to you about is the different functions that we will use in Excel. They are actually grouped into their different functional groups. And what we have, we've got mathematical functions, we've got statistical functions, we've got logical functions. Mathematical functions include the ln or natural log function, we've got the square root, we've got the round function, we've got the round up, run down function, we've got the rand and rand between function. And for statistical functions, we've got functions like the count, count if, standard deviation, variance or var function, correl, which calculates the correlation, and different distributional functions. Those are just examples. And for logical, we've got functions like the if and or, true, false, and functions. Just to illustrate a few, on these numbers, let us use a certain few. For mathematical function, let's say I'm looking for the square root of 40. What I would do is type in an equal sign, and then for the square root function, I would type in the word sqrt, and then of course it shows here, and I double click and it asks me for the number. I click on the number that I want, the square root, and it gives me that. So what I would do is I would drag down as well, and it is going to calculate the square root for all the numbers like we saw, because we referenced this relatively. So now we would want to increase or reduce the number of decimal places here. You can either use the round function. The round function actually rounds the number up or down in accordance to the number of decimal places that you want your answer to be. But the quickest way to actually round the numbers here is to select this, and as you move your cursor up here, you will see this point and 3 zeros that it's written increased decimals, and here it's written decreased decimals. So if, for example, I would select this number and I want more decimal places, I would increase the decimals, and as I click on it, the decimals increase. You see that? And if I click on this, the decimals decrease. All right? And then for the statistical functions like the count and count if, we will talk about that in the next video when we start talking about sampling. And as we move along, we'll look at the logical functions like the if statement, the not statement, and all that. But for now, I would suggest you go play around with what I just did. And if you have any questions, you can actually send me an email and I would gladly help. Thank you very much.